All right, here we are with Two Sketchy Dudes, episode 3. And again, I'm Eric.
And I'm Lee.
And we'd like to give you just a little introduction of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to kind of jump back into a little bit of discussion of Mont Blanc with the pen that we talked about in the last episode, the Mont Blanc Bohem. We're going to talk a little bit about the company with some sketchy fun facts.
Then we've got the assistance of someone new, right? Who's that?
A guest dub over by my beautiful wife, Sandra Switzer.
Yep.
She'll give us some sketchy fun facts about the Mont Blanc company.
Our staff is expanding here at 2SD Enterprises.
Yeah, at a crazy rate. And then next, what are we going to do? What are we going to talk about after that?
We're going to take you on site to a sketch outing that we are conducting at Oakland Cemetery. And so you'll get a chance to see what we do, how we prepare, and how we execute an urban sketch. And we'll show you the tools that we take with us and how we position ourselves, and we'll talk a little bit about the details and to take some of the mystery out of going on site and sketching subjects out in the wild.
Oakland is one of our favorite places to go. We've been there several times, absolutely love it, and we will be going back there several times in the future. But we'll also at the end we'll talk about our drawings a little bit, give you a little bit of a breakdown of what we think about how our sketches turned out. So stay tuned and we'll dive into this right now.
Hey, couple of sketchy fun facts. Did you know that Mont Blanc is a German company that's been around for 110 years? And their name is for the highest mountain in the Alps of Western Europe? On every pen nib, you can find the number 4810, which represents the number of meters the mountain is above sea level. Also found on the nib is the number 18K and 750, which represents the gold content in the nib. Another thing that you can find on the nib and the pen cap of Mont Blanc pens is a 6-pointed star, their logo, which represents a bird's eye view of the mountaintop.
All right, Two Sketchy Dudes out here in Oakland Cemetery, and this is going to be the subject that we draw today. We're just looking around at a little bit of the perspective to see what's around here. Wow.
Oh, sorry.
There's one of them.
Yeah, so we're trying to pick a viewpoint on this mausoleum or crypt out here at Oakland Cemetery. And there are a lot of different options here. We're right with our back to the sun right now, which kind of washes out the facade, but now Eric's kind of walked over here to the corner. We're about 45 degrees from the object itself. This is a fantastic view. What do you think?
It's very good. The only thing I don't like is that the back facade is very plain, and so that's one of the things that we're considering as we're looking at what to sketch. It doesn't give us the most detail. It doesn't give us the most interest for what our drawing is, but it is a great view.
Something that's amazing. The shadow on that roof on the left-hand side is from the peak at the other gable is amazing.
Absolutely.
That's a little detail.
Those are the kinds of things that make the drawing absolutely stand out.
These guys in the foreground are really great for telling a story, because your sketch might just look like a building otherwise, but when you have these tombstones or these headstones in front of it, your sketch might then be a little more specific to a cemetery.
We're now around to the side with the sun a little bit more in our face. The nice thing about this side has a little bit more detail. Certainly the interest of the arch there, and it gives a little bit more of a I guess a compact view of the drawing, which can be more vertical and pretty interesting for our drawing.
It's technically accurate. I mean, it shows you the structure, and so if you wanted to capture the basic geometry, this is a good viewpoint, but it's in shadow and you don't get the depth. That's
right. And here's a straight on elevation view, which is a little bit more interesting than a typical elevation because we're down below the ground line, which is kind of interesting here. Here we are in kind of the shadow corner. We're getting the dramatic sun lighting behind it. Again, a nice view, but it's all kind of washed out in terms of tone. We don't get the shadow or the shade and shadow on the building that we want.
Yeah, this does nothing for me. And I think it's going to change as the sun moves, because you're going to be out here for an hour and the sun will move during that time.
I couldn't agree more. It's giving you a pretty good picture of the entirety of the building. And as you can see, we come over here and this is pretty much the point of view we're going to be looking at, because we get good shade, good shadow, and a nice verticality of the building, good foreground, everything that we want in a good composition for a drawing.
The shadows add the depth to it, which make the edge of the gables project out, and you can see the texture in the roof. It's really all around a really good subject for sketching.
All right, we're actually going to, I think, step back a little bit because as Lee has seen already, we've had a few cars driving through here, and we'd like to camp about right where Lee is at, but we think that this will be a better spot back here. So we're actually on a little side road here, and we're going to set up our chairs. Lee's got a chair with a back and the little arm holders, and I just have a little tripod chair here, and those will be the basis for our camp.
So your stool there is not like a full stool. It's like a sample of a stool. Is that what it is? It's more like a stool sample?
Is that where we're going with this?
So like any urban sketching outing, you got to find a place to set up. And so we've got our chair set up right here. We're basically trying to stay out of vehicular traffic, but trying to stay out of people traffic too. Sometimes when we're downtown, we get people asking us what we're up to, asking where we're from. A lot of times they think we're from out of town, but that happens. Part of being an urban sketcher. Eric's unpacking his stuff right now. Let's see, what's your equipment you've got here, Eric?
Critical. We've got our sketchbook in an awesome sketch leather portfolio we'll talk about a little bit later on. I've got the pen that I'm going to use today, which is a platinum preppy extra fine nib to do this drawing. I got my water bottle. Always hydrate or die. That's our motto.
It's two sketchy dudes know to hydrate.
Always bring your tunes with you. Little
Okay.
Bose speaker, so that gives us our music to listen to. And then I always have my little pieces where I can just do a little bit of ink to get the pen flowing. Anything I need to do to clean up as I'm doing my drawings and keep my hands from messing up the drawings.
And that's basically all you need for urban sketching.
Absolutely. And a nice pair of sunglasses, sometimes a chapeau to keep the sun off your head.
Does it have to be a Big Ten school?
Go Big Red. Yes. All right, Lee Percy, we're looking at some of the tools that you carry out here into the plein air sketching world.
My pride and joy is this gift from fellow sketcher Eric, is this pen roll that has all like my favorite pens in it. I still have a collection at home, and not all of them are inked, and I'm not going to use all of these, but I love keeping it with me. It is fantastic. It's this amazing leather that was made in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Rod.
Freaking
Yep.
awesome. And so
Rod Hollowell from Rod's Pods. We're going to give you a big shout out this time.
So I generally lay these things out here by my chair when I'm urban sketching, have them handy. It also allows you to start conversations with people that walk by as well. But I'm going to be doing a pencil sketch today, and so this handy dandy little book contains my graphite work tools. So on one side it's got my larger pencils. These guys are amazing. They give you a really broad tip, and then there's just an actual stick of graphite there, which can be helpful. Then I have the white pencil that I mentioned in the first video that we did. And one important tool you shouldn't overlook is your basic carpenter's pencil. Can be really valuable and give you a great effect. You don't have to pay much money. You can go to the Home Depot, pick one up for $1.99. And then I've got this fuchsia pencil in here, which I never use. I have no idea why it's in here. And
Placeholder.
I think it's good to have one tool that you never use and you question, just to keep things mixed up a little bit. So that's I keep these things handy here. I'll start with a very fine, hard pencil to lay the work out, and then I'll go to a softer pencil as I get through the sketch. And then these are the sketchbooks. I'm going to pick a page out of that. But that's about it for the tools that I'm going to use today.
Very nice. All right, I am just doing a quick rough block out for this guy. We've drawn this building before, and so what we really like the building itself, but what I wanted to do was just basically get the rough block out here for my sketch, and then I can come back in and do a lot more refinement. So we're just kind of getting the basics for how we want to set up the where it fits on the page, how everything kind of lines up, get a good perspective set up, and then we can come back in and fill in with the details later. So that's, this is one method of doing it. I also can start at one side sometimes and just work my way through a sketch, and just kind of do the finished work as we go through. But this is a little bit more of a process to show what's going on there. So once I get this all kind of set up here, now we're ready to go in and fill in the work. All right, Lee, tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now.
Okay, so I've just started out on the sketch. Eric and I have basically the same viewpoint, but we have a different approach. I'm working in pencil, and I have what seems to be a complete mess, but it's a very sketchy structure for the layout of the image. And I'm using a 5H, which is basically equivalent to a rusty nail. It doesn't put down much graphite at all, and it allows you to go over, rework it a number of times without really impacting your sketch too much. It gives you a lot of freedom to make mistakes. So this is the basic structure. I'm going to come in with a much darker pencil, softer lead, and add more detail to it from this point. All right, we're back from Oakland Cemetery, and we are going to just review the work that we did and self-critique and talk about each other's sketch and talk about what it was like to be out at Oakland Cemetery and to be on site. So
a lot better being above grade than below grade out there.
That you want to be on the right side of the cemetery.
That's right.
So as you saw, Eric was doing a pen and ink sketch of the subject matter, and I was doing a pencil sketch. And so I'll talk a little bit about my experience and my feeling about the sketch. As you saw in the video, I laid it out with some light guidelines using a 5H pencil, and then went over it with a softer lead and a broader pencil, a larger pencil with a broader graphite to give me some more bold line work. And so this doesn't have a lot of detail to it. Mine is more study in shade and shadow and forms. It doesn't talk a lot about architectural materials. I'm not really rendering the materials of it, and that's okay with me. Each sketch has a purpose, or it really should have a purpose, meaning that you ought to go into it thinking that I want to convey these three things about this subject matter, or this one thing and it should be something that you like about it. You don't have to convey everything about the architecture or in your sketch or have it photographic quality, because like we always say, take a picture,
it'll last longer.
Yeah. So take the pressure off yourself to have a photorealistic vision of the image. And so mine has a lot of hatching that I've used to depict the shaded part of the structure, and I've spent a lot of time on the shadow as well to show how the different peaks on the roof line show up on the ground. So I think that this one is different from yours in that I've employed an object line or a profile line on this one to make it stand out, because mine is an object study. It's more about the forms of the building. It's less about the place. And Eric's is tell us a little bit more about Oakland Cemetery and what it's like to be there in the context of the building. So the building is one part of a bigger story. Mine is simply maybe just a little more simple, zoom in on the building itself.
And Lee, what I would say is, you had mentioned the hatching that you used. It is a very directional hatching that Lee used in this particular sketch. And the nice thing is he's changed the angles of the hatches in order to denote different planes in the drawing itself. So our sketchy word of the day is directional hatching. You'll see a lot of that in both of our work, now and going forward. It's something that you can use to draw a lot more interest into the sketch itself, because you do get to change directions. It's something that allows you to really give your planer.
What's non-directional hatch? Would that be a dot?
I guess, or no hatching at all. But as I was stumbling upon my words there, I was trying to think of how I had approached my drawing, and I it's a little bit different, in terms of what Lee had done for a couple reasons. Number one, as he said, the building sits a little bit more into the landscape. It's not as much of the object only. I created a little bit more of the broader surroundings for this to root it into the landscape a little bit more. I was really intrigued by the little low knee walls that are around at the base of the building, not only the building that we studied, but the foreground as well. So that seemed like something to help set up the materiality. I wanted to talk a little bit about the stone that you see and how to render that a little bit. And so light lines to start the base of this drawing, foreground work, kind of the middle ground work, and then I worked to the building at the very end, and then tried to add in some good shade and shadow technique in this, and so not so much as the linear direction, the directional hatching that Lee had used. I used some angled cross hatching, I guess in singular direction. I would say I didn't cross over at this time, but to give a little bit of direction from I had the sun angle coming from the upper left to the lower right of the drawing. So a lot of times for my shadow and shade on the sketch, I will use that direction to help convey what the light angle, the solar angle is on the building itself.
You're using black ink on a white page, and you've actually achieved greater tonal variation than I have with the graphite. My graphite is either it is or it isn't, and I think that's an interesting approach, and that's using line weight and spacing of your directional hatching.
And we talked about this. If you don't finish your drawing when you're out there sketching in the wild, take it back to your studio, set it up, and continue and work on it a little bit more if you want to do that. We had time, in this particular day to get most of our work done, and so I probably won't add anything to this particular drawing, but that's something that you can certainly do when you get back. Take a couple pictures of the image, go back and try to have at least one photo close to where you were sitting, and then you can continue and add on to your drawing that way.
So let's take a moment to evaluate how comfortable we are with each of our sketches, and so I'll just ask you, ranked on your portfolio and your previous works in the work that you've done, how do you feel about this particular sketch and where it falls in that realm?
I like it. We go back and have a chance to look at our drawings later on, and so you may have already said this or may very well say it shortly. I think I enjoy my sketches a little bit more after I have a time to kind of let them sit for a little bit and go back and look at them at a later point. You remember everything that that was going on while you're out there. You remember the people that were walking by, the smells, the flowers were, there are a lot of daffodils out in bloom right now in Atlanta, and it's beautiful. And so you remember all of the temperature, all of that stuff, the quality of light. And so as the drawing sits for a little while, you come back and you see different things than you saw as you were creating it, or as we were talking about it right after the drawing, happened. So I like this sketch. I don't ever like my work too much. I always think everything I see, I think there's room for improvement.
Yeah, I always feel the worst about my sketch right when I've completed it, and they always seem to look better to me in hindsight, and I come back and visit them. This isn't a perfect example of it, and we'll display it on the screen. But this is the courthouse in Athens, Georgia, and at the time I was somewhat happy with the way it turned out, but I just looked at it again recently, and it really made me feel good. It gave me, I really liked it, and there was a lot about it that I enjoyed. And like you mentioned, Derek, it brings back a lot of memories, because I remember we were setting up our chairs outside the courthouse. What's that? Athens?
Athens, Clark County, yeah.
And so I can't remember everything about the day, but I do remember the fact that it was a little bit chilly, and so getting back to this one in context of the work I've done in the past, I would say I'm kind of at a mid-level of satisfaction with it. I think I probably will come back to it and when some time has passed and see something in it that I'm overlooking right now. And maybe it's because you and I are both generally optimistic people, and we will pick out the nice parts of a sketch and focus on that when we're evaluating our own work. So I think that I'm happy with it. The thing that's more important than the sketch itself and the piece of paper is the experience of sketching. So it was a great experience being out there in the cemetery, and it was crowded. I mean, you didn't see a lot of people in the video, but there are a lot of people who go there to exercise, and it's a historic cemetery, so it's used by the community. So whether or not I'm pleased with the sketch, I'm very happy that we had the opportunity to go out and spend the afternoon doing it. That's the real value.
Absolutely. And so what we would say is just make sure you get out there and take the time and go do it. Go practice, have fun, and enjoy everything you do.
So our producer in New York wanted us to say a few things here when we conclude our videos. We haven't been doing this well enough in the past. We are supposed to ask people to subscribe, right?
And that's, I think, in the links down below, as the kids always say.
Yeah. You're supposed to click on the little bell. That will give you a notification whenever we post something, which hopefully will be weekly. And then leave a comment or ask a question. And you can ask a Sketchy Dude anything you want. And maybe we'll address them in future episodes.
Absolutely. Thank you for your support.
Thanks. Welcome to a new segment that we're starting called Ask A Sketchy Dude. And we're going to just review some of the comments and questions that have been posted on the YouTube channel. And so I've asked Eric to pull out a couple that we can address.
Yeah, we really appreciate the questions and the comments and certainly the support as we start this out. Our first comment is from Rennie Marie Martinez.
What does Rennie have to say?
She has to say, "Oh my Eric, this is going to be a ball!" Exclamation point. I did not know about your friend Lee Percy. Be nice to Eric now. He's a great guy.
Well, you don't know Eric like I do. So I know the real Eric, but he is a great guy, and he's really an adequate support to my YouTube channel, and I think that it's working out well. So we appreciate the comment.
Absolutely, and I'm going to jump on to this is a comment from Lindsay Johns. She asks, actually a question she asked, does the dotted paper you use help you with proportion? And Lindsay, that's an absolutely great question. I use a Lechaterm 1917 dot pattern journal. Lee and I have felt like, on some of these journals that we have that have the patterns on them, they give you a starting point so you don't end up with the blank page syndrome to start with. Do they help me with proportion? They certainly can, especially when I'm doing things a little bit more architectural, a little bit more direct on with elevation. But when we're doing our perspectives like we did in this the drawing here in Oakland Cemetery, I don't use it so much for proportion as I do to line up the parallel lines that are both vertical and horizontal. So they can be a little bit helpful in that regard. A lot of times I forget about it because you get lost in the drawing and it's super fun. But I know in the back of my mind I do use that a little bit. So.
Yeah, it's a great technique.
Yeah.
So please feel free to send in your comments and your questions and ask a Sketchy Dude.
Thank you.